Hi, I'm Mindy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my wrap up for the TBR Tackle Readathon, which was the entire month of February and was hosted by Jyotsna's Bookscapades and Books and Key. Their channels will be linked down below. This was such a fun readathon, and I managed to finish 8 out of the 9 prompts, so I'm pretty proud of that. The first prompt was to read a nonfiction book. I read Monster, She Wrote, The Women Who Pioneered Horror and Speculative Fiction by Lisa Kroger and Melanie R. Anderson. And this was a really cute book about some of the first female horror and speculative fiction writers, starting way back with Gothic literature. There were short sections for every author. The writing was very approachable and easy to read, and written in an entertaining way that always kept my attention. The sections were so short that I was able to read quite a few of them and get through a lot of pages really fast and not realize I was reading so much. There were also really adorable pictures, green and black pictures throughout. I don't have the physical book, so I can't show you the pictures within the book, but they are similar to the ones on the cover, so you can look and see what they look like. The only downfall is if you read a lot of the book all at once, it does get kind of repetitive because it's just talking about the author's life and their books. So kind of hard to read a whole bunch of them at once. It's easier to take in the information and retain it, reading it in small chunks, which is what I tried to do. Really love this book. Definitely worth checking out. I got mine through the library, so you might be able to find it that way. I will warn you though, it may add quite a few new authors and books to your TBR. Just what we need, right? Yeah, really great book, 4 stars. Prompt 2 is read a book by a BIPOC author. And I read Lakewood by Megan Giddings, which is a bit of a thriller book. And it's about a research facility, a young woman who needs money to pay for her mother's medical care, so joins a medical facility. She has to move to the facility and they do whatever medical experiments that they want on her. And it is, I found it really terrifying. I thought that it was really good at building a sense of dread. I can't even imagine having to take random medicine that they don't tell you what it's supposed to do or what the side effects may be. They just have to take the medicine and do whatever experiments, answer whatever questions they might have. I really fell for this girl and I wanted her to get away from this place all the way throughout. I really liked this book and I gave it 4 stars as well. Prompt 3 was to read a translation. I read Human Acts by Han Kang. I recently read The Vegetarian by Han Kang and absolutely loved it. It was so imaginative and weird and just everything I love. And this one had some very similar vibes to that. Very unique, very imaginative. And let me tell you a little bit about why. This is a very dark story based on true horrific events in Korea's history. The telling of this story is very unique because it switches with some sections being written in second person and some in first person. It is all about this boy, Dong-ho, who is tragically killed in a student uprising, and then it's told from a lot of different perspectives of people that knew him or are connected to him in some way, telling the story from their eyes. Some of the perspectives are very unique. Some perspectives are told from the spirits of people that died in these events. So that was something that I really enjoyed. There were some gross parts, like describing piles of rotting bodies, that sort of thing. So if that is not something you want to read about, you might want to steer clear. It was only a small section of the book, but it was heartbreaking at times, especially reading from the perspective of his mother. It was really a beautiful book. It's not super fast paced or thrilling or anything like that. It's very literary and takes its time. I gave this one 4 stars as well. Prompt 4, short story collection. I didn't get to the one that I was planning on reading, but I did read short stories in February. I read If I Die Before I Wake, Tales of Nightmare Creatures, which is an anthology of horror creature stories that I really loved. I loved every single story in this anthology. I do love stories with spooky creatures in them, and these ones were all really well written with great characters and creatures. So I gave the collection 5 stars. Love it. Prompt 5, a genre. Read a book from a genre that you love. I love horror and fantasy, and I read a horror fantasy western book. This is Unbury Carol by Josh Mallerman. I read this as a buddy read with Dane Reeds, and we both really enjoyed it, sounds like. This, I would say, is kind of a fantasy western. It had some really fanciful elements, but there are some really dark elements as well. So I think it borders on horror as well. There's a woman, Carol, who has a condition where she will seem to be dead, but really isn't. She'll go into a coma of sorts where her breathing and heartbeat are so slow that she seems to be dead, and only her husband and one other person knows about this condition, and her husband thinks he's the only one, and he plans on getting rid of his wife. There's like this evil plot going on, but the other person who knows is gonna try to save the day. And there's also evil killers involved, and just so many elements converge to make a very entertaining story, in my opinion. I love this cover, and now that I know the story, like, the cover means a lot more, and I love it even more. It's a beautiful book. 4 stars. Prompt 6 was to read a tome, a book over 400 pages. I did not get to my tome, so nope, didn't get that one done. Prompt 7, LGBTQ plus author or book. I read Starving Ghosts in Every Thread by Eric LaRocca. Eric LaRocca is an LGBTQ plus author, and the main character in this story is an LGBTQ plus character. Starving Ghosts in Every Thread follows a woman with a very strange affliction where her skin is actually unraveling and it is tied to her emotions. It was a beautiful story, imaginative, full of beautiful imagery that you can really imagine and see in your mind. I knew that I would probably like Eric's novella here after reading his poetry that I recently reviewed on my channel. And this story definitely held up to that quality, and I really, really love this story. This is one that everybody should read and experience for themselves. And I gave this one 5 stars, no question about it. Prompt 8, an ebook. I read 3 ebooks this month. If I Die Before I Wake, Tales of Nightmare Creatures was an ebook, as well as Monster She Wrote and Starving Ghosts in Every Thread. 3 ebooks, 1 prompt. Way to go, me. And the last prompt was to read a classic. I read a classic of science fiction, and that would be Starship Troopers by Robert A. Heinlein. I had read one other Heinlein book before, which was A Stranger in a Strange Land. I thought that was interesting, with really cool concepts to think about, if not dated, but just a cool story of a human who was born on Mars, so I guess a Martian, that comes back to Earth and then tries to figure out Earthlings' customs and way of life, and what he thinks of them from an outsider's perspective. And that book was really interesting. This one, Starship Troopers, I had seen the movie before. This is a science fiction war book. It is about a intergalactic war with aliens that are very unlike ourselves. They kind of look like giant bugs and act kind of like a hive of bees. They have hive mind type thing going on. And it's about the training they go through in the army, their equipment, their tactics, and everything like that. And not the typical kind of book that I would pick for myself, but I did kind of like the movie, and the book is better, in my opinion. I'm sure if I watched the movie now, I would be like facepalm. Very 90s, I'm sure. So this one would probably be loved more by men with the whole war tactics type plot line, but I did enjoy it. I am kind of a sucker for war movies and don't very often pick up war books, but I kind of liked it. I would probably give this 3.5 stars. So that is everything that I read for the TBR Tackle. It was such a fun readathon. Have you read any of these books? How did you do in the TBR Tackle if you participated? If you like this video, you can hit like and subscribe, and I'll be back every Tuesday, Thursday, sometimes Sunday with another book-related video. Thanks. Bye.